Thanks for joining. This is Jeff Dotzler. Welcome to another Coffee Break Technology Series where we're going to talk about the first line of defense as it relates to cybersecurity, and that's really your teams, your employees, those folks that have access to a mouse and a keyboard. And our strongest systems are really only as good as the weakest link. And unfortunately, most organizations, that's speed and stress and all the things that cause someone to do something that they shouldn't. So happy to be joined today by Nathan Distel. Good morning, Nathan.
Morning.
Nathan is VCIO in our Ohio market and works with our clients in Ohio and Indiana, and is really going to spend some time helping us talk through and think about and answer your questions as it relates to end users and how we can train staff up to be more prepared to see the bad things that are happening and to take the right steps so that those bad things don't happen. So a couple things to remind everyone. We want to hear your questions. We've had some really good interaction the last couple webinars. So utilize the Q&A box in the Zoom control panel. That opens up an ability for you to ask a question. We can see those, and we'll try to answer them throughout the conversation. You can also use the chat option, which is another good way for us to see the interaction and be able to answer those questions. So as a reminder, as many of you probably know and have been celebrating variously throughout the month, October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So we want to make sure that we continue to bring good content as it relates to cybersecurity, and it's not always just tools and technology and cool things that you can install. It also has to be about training, and so really that's what we'll talk about today. So first question, Nathan, is unfortunately with the last 18 months, the buzzword has been and continues to be remote work, and really how that impacts awareness training. And so let's talk about how a business can effectively train employees to be the first line of defense, as the title talks about, for cybersecurity. What types of training do you recommend? How often should an organization be retraining? Should refresh training occur? What do you see as best practices out there?
Yeah, so obviously, within what you just talked about, awareness is probably the key thing that we have to focus on. If they don't know what they're supposed to be looking at or what issues or risks are out there, obviously they can't avoid them. So that's the biggest thing, is actually just bringing the awareness to your users of the risks out there, and hopefully helping them to reduce that risk. That's pretty much key to start with your organization. There's tools out there to help, material stuff. One of the biggest things and probably the best things that we found right now is security awareness training platforms. Here at Elevity, we offer a couple different platforms for our clients to, what it does is it brings testing, it brings training, and it keeps bringing that awareness to the users on a constant basis. So, for the testing part, we actually, our products provide actual email tests to the users. They're fake phishing attempts that we hit the users with on a routine basis to see how they interact with those phishing emails. Anywhere between just opening them to clicking on a link to actually following through on opening the attachment. All those things are tested with the users, and we are able to, get a report behind that and be able to see where we need to focus on not only the users themselves, which users, but what kind of areas are really catching your users in your environment. And then providing that training. There's many different ways, again, materials, but one of the things that seems to catch the eye and seems to sink in a little bit better with the users is some interactive training that is not just a boring, okay, here's what to look for, answer these questions about what we just talked about. It actually has some very humorous and very interactive videos, kind of making it more entertaining, keeping them more involved, and allowing that information to absorb a little bit better than some of that just tedious everyday testing type environment stuff. And we seem to find that definitely helps a lot more to make things a little bit more entertaining. And then just continued awareness. We can test, we can give that training materials, but it's not something that you can do just once a year and expect your users to obtain that knowledge. There's got to be a routine to it. There's got to be a little bit more frequency to it. Quarterly is kind of a common area to where you'll continue to do what we call a campaign. And that's how those emails will go out to those users, test them, find out who's susceptible to that risk, and then, provide some more in-depth training and provide some more materials and keep an awareness. For one things that we try to do with our clients here in October for Security Awareness Month is we provided a big kind of poster board material that they can hang up in a break room or somewhere that's visible to their staff frequently, that has some of the tips and tricks and things to look for. That also helps a lot on keeping that fresh in your environment's mind, in your business's mind, and your users. But yeah, you got to have some kind of routine. Obviously you can't do as well as you can't do it too much. Again, if you say you're doing it weekly, it tends to kind of bring a mindset of a burden or an annoyance to a user. So there's kind of a fine line there. But yeah, I mean, the key things are, again, with that is just the awareness, giving that little bit of training, continually testing to just make sure to see where your risks are at, and then having that continued awareness throughout the year. So
yeah, I think I've heard some of your colleagues and others talk about, from an awareness perspective, having it be similar to safety training, especially if you're in manufacturing or doing things where safety is really an issue. I mean, safety is an issue everywhere, but probably a little less focus on safety at a CPA firm than there is in a manufacturing facility. But always something that needs to be talked about on a regular basis. And the further you get away from the training, the less people remember. And so just keeping it constant. You mentioned some folks who, when we do the tests where we send some fake phishing examples, those that click, we call them clickers, get a refresher. They get training assigned a little more frequently because maybe they missed the message or haven't stayed as diligent. So the frequency is important, but to your point, if it's too often, it starts to become noise and not focused on. You did mention the poster, and someone asked a question about where would one get that poster board. And I believe, I will jump ahead on some slides, but I think we don't have that in here. I'll get it to you, but I think it's alevity.com/poster. I think there's a form that you can fill out, and we can get some printed off and sent your way. Of course, they're great for October, but they don't expire. You can leave them up all year round. So we will make sure that you get that information. So the next level, we talk, the good cybersecurity has many levels. It's got to be a layered approach. Clearly, technology, it needs to be part of that. And passwords is always one of those things that gets brought up. So what are the best practices and policies that you recommend that businesses should consider, both to keep users and data, the business data, critical business data, secure? And do you recommend any tools for that process and that approach?
Yeah, passwords are definitely a good key point to making sure that your environment's safe. And the password standards have kind of changed over the last few years. There's it's been complexity and length and changing your password every 90 days or even frequently sometimes. And some of those standards have changed a little bit because some of those options were starting to become counterproductive. It got annoying to a lot of folks having to change their passwords every 30, 60, 90 days. They started getting into a patterned approach to their passwords to where Just a generic example, they would say, okay, password 2019 February or something like that. And then they would just continue that and just change maybe the month or the last number and just go up one tick. And so, one of the bigger standards that you'll see across some security research and policies these days is the NIST standard, or the National Institute for Security and Technology. They've changed their policies a little bit, and people are kind of coming along with those. So one of the biggest things right now is just your length is probably very important. The longer the password, the lot harder and the lot longer it takes for the bad guys to be able to use their special security tools to do that continued password hashing to try to get into your systems. And that's a big one. The length is very important. The complexity is still important. Adding those characters to your passwords, not so much, I guess, the capitalization or the lowercase, uppercase, those types of things, but just adding some other different characters in there along with your numbers and your letters and those types of things. And then just trying to get away from some common stuff that is out there. You don't want to use passwords. You don't want to, password as your password. You don't want to you try not to use, even similar passwords to what like is in your username or your business name or anything like that. Those are easily figured out because it's associated with certain things that the bad guys would be potentially looking into to begin with. So those are a couple of things that you really want to focus on when creating a password. But there are some tools out there as well that helps with your environment that you can put in place that helps to, when a user creates a password, it actually assesses a database that says, okay, here's the common passwords that are used out there. Here are passwords that are within what they call the dark web environment that have been stolen from a user and have been put out on the market to be sold as for the bad guys to be able to get into systems. There's tools in place that allow you to check on that. So the user knows that, okay, yeah, this is probably not a good password. I need to adjust and make something a little bit more complex. Those are probably the key things on password policies right now that you really should probably focus on. And I know passwords can get daunting, day-to-day environment. We are in a lot of systems these days. We have our computers, we have trying to remember Wi-Fi passwords, trying to remember our email password, trying to remember our application passwords. It can get pretty crazy with how many different accounts that we have and how many different passwords that we have. But luckily there are tools out there to help with that. And there's a couple tools that we use here and can provide at a levity as well. But with some of the major ones out there that are really good tools, LastPass is a very popular one. There's a couple others like Keeper and Dashline that allow you to be able to organize and manage your accounts that you have in all those different areas. They provide good security, good encryption behind that doesn't allow, the bad guys to be able to easily get that information. So.
Yeah, good. Yeah, passwords are important and something that everybody needs to be paying attention to with timing to make sure that people are resetting them on a consistent basis and the strength. So really important, and obviously important that you use a unique password for the business applications and specifically your AD login, and have that be different than what you use at LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or whatever else. Good. So again, we talked about this multi-layer approach. We talked about the end users and making sure we have good security in place. We talked about passwords a bit. The big next thing that everyone wants to talk about because it's becoming mandated by cyber insurance policies, excuse me, is multi-factor authentication. Becoming pretty commonplace. Whether it's logging into Facebook, as I mentioned earlier, logging into your bank account, they all want to text you a quick code to make sure that you're the right one, or you're the person that is intending to be logging in, and making sure that those passwords stay safe. So talk to us a little bit about why multi-factor is a best practice for securing business data, and what are the different types of MFA that exist, and how should organizations be thinking about this?
Yeah, MFA is one of the key tools we have available to us now that could really help keep a lot of our environment safe. Very personal information, like Jeff spoke to these days, is being required now to have that second form of authentication in your environment. And with MFA, one of the key things with that is the bad guys can go out and grab all the user accounts that they want. If they don't have that other multi-factor form of authentication, that information is basically useless to them. Now, there's social engineering things that they could potentially do to eventually somewhere get there, but they would really need that, either that physical device, access to your email, access to your text message or your app that you use. There's a couple of different things that they would need to be able to get into those systems. So that's key right now in security is that multi-factor authentication right now. And again, with technology, with security, it can be a little daunting at times. It can be a little bit bothersome to have to do that next step or that extra click or that extra checking of an email for some information. But there's tons of ways to be able to use MFA within your environments these days, and it's evolving every day with the types of ways that you can do multi-factor authentication. As Jeff spoke to, you can get an email or text message that has that code in there. They even have the phone call option that actually calls you, and it's an automated message that just verifies that it's you that's getting into the system. Key fobs, you guys will see that probably more frequently with your bank accounts. You'll have that little keychain thing that has the revolving number on it that you need to log into your bank account. You'll see that with a lot of business stuff and banking. But one of the easiest and becoming more common method is the apps, the Microsoft Authenticator app, the Google Authenticator app. There's many others out there, but just you tie your Microsoft email account, or you tie your bank, or you tie your security tool to the app, and it's usually a click of an approval from the app from your phone. It's so much easier now, and even the apps themselves are taking even the next step to make it easier for a user. They're tapping into the resources that the device has. So for instance, phones or tablets, we have facial recognition, we have thumbprint recognition, we have even voice command stuff in there that these authenticator apps are taking advantage of to make sure that it's a lot easier for you to have that second level of security and to continue to protect yourself, your business data, your very important personal information, banking, medical records, all those types of things. And most everything these days has the capability of some form of MFA. If it doesn't, there are several vendors out there that will integrate with plenty of platforms to allow you to have that MFA to continue to keep all of those different areas that you have to work in on a day-to-day basis, not only in your business side, but on your personal life, and help keep you protected. So.
Yeah, good. All right. So we had focused really the topic of the content was really on end users and the things that we could do, from the end user perspective. But a question came in that I think is important to address, which is for continuing down the layers of security as it relates to endpoint detection and response and what we're doing around that. So maybe you could just describe what we've done with our with the security fabric that we've built out recently, and clients that are on our current version 4 of our fully managed program are going to be hearing about this. But yeah, we're definitely adding more and more to our security fabric, and endpoint detection and response is a key part of that. So maybe tell us a little bit about that, Nathan, right before we wrap up.
Yeah. So, obviously the users are usually the biggest risk, and we talked about that and how do you help mitigate that risk there. But with our approach at Elevity, we are in essence more of a security provider than, I guess, a managed IT services provider. So, we take that seriously, and we have researched, we have a committee that we use to continue to evaluate and evolve our solutions that we provide to our customers. And the security fabric that Jeff mentioned is a huge layered approach. We have our, just with our team in general, we have our help desk team, our security engineers, our BCIOs to help business strategy, our emerging solutions committee evaluating our solutions that we're providing to our customers. But then we go the layered approach on protection with our network infrastructure security. We go down to the device level security, as Jeff mentioned, with our endpoint detect and respond that has AI technology that's evaluating your system as in a stable state, making sure that any change that's even being thought about or attempted is being evaluated and mitigated if it's deemed a risk. Behind that application itself alone, we have security operations centers, personal folks viewing these events, taking action and making sure that things are taken care of. And that's just on the device level. Once we're just in the device level, we go into the actual activity level of your entire organization and how we can best protect you with there. On the email side, we have email security solutions that check through all the email data, evaluating everything, the links, the sites that are involved, the attachments that are involved, doing testing on all that stuff before it even hits the user to make sure that user is protected. And then also continuing to evaluate that data, even the historical data, to be recognized if down the line for some odd reason it is deemed not good. We have the security awareness training to help on that platform as well. And then we get to the even deeper dive of the environment, to where we're AI technology and security operations centers are continually evaluating every single amount of traffic, logging, interaction, processing that's going on in your environment, where it's viewing logs from your networking equipment, from your computers, from your 365 email system, from maybe your cloud-based application that you have going on. It's evaluating all the traffic, all the logs and events that are going on in that environment, and recognizing when things are bad, when things are good, providing that the bad information to our security operations centers to take action immediately within seconds, minutes, hours. And not only just on events that are happening, but it is of continually evaluating your environment and seeing where the risks are and providing the fixes and the ways to mitigate those risks before we even get into the issue to begin with.
Yeah, so there's a lot of layers. There's a lot of tools that are involved. A question was asked about the solution that is the EDR. Sentinel-1 is the product. And we have lots of products and lots of different things. I think where Elevity has separated ourselves and where we're providing the most value is how all those work together, and the people and the processes to make sure that the right alerts and the right issues are being having action taken on them, because the noise is significant, and it's pretty difficult to keep your arms around that unless you have the right things in place to recognize what's real and what needs to be taken action on. So we would be happy to talk to anyone that has further questions or interest in understanding more of what would be best for their organization and the challenges that they're faced with. So either reach out to Nathan or I, reach out to your account manager, your senior business development rep, your ITSC, your VCIO, any of those resources. We'd be happy to connect with you. So really happy to have Nathan join us. Thanks again for that and all the information. We'll continue to talk about and celebrate Cybersecurity Awareness Month throughout the month of October. Please check alevityit.com/events for additional topics next week. Cybersecurity top breaches and important trends from 2021 will be presented. I think that'll be very informational and topical about some of the big issues that have happened and things that people need to be thinking about and preparing for, especially if you're budgeting for 2022, and the solutions that would need to be included in your stack. Feel free to scan this QR code to claim your coffee gift card for joining us this morning. You can also, if you're quick at typing, type that URL to grab it. I'll come back to that at the end. Here's our email addresses. At alevityit.com, you can get a hold of any one of us. We'd be happy to talk further and answer any questions or get you in touch with the right people. We'll go back to that coffee card to wrap it up. So thanks again, Nathan. Have a great weekend. Appreciate everyone who joined us and the questions that came through. And we would love to talk to you further about how we can help you tackle any of your cybersecurity concerns.
Yeah, thank you.